Thanks, Erica. And great to meet you all today, and great to have Peace Lights at another human rights event. Peace Lights was something that came out of nowhere, seemingly. We had just been doing public light art events in 2014, and 2015, as many of you know, was the United Nations International Year of Light. And my partner and I, Eileen Cohen, were the invited artists, projectionists for the opening ceremonies at the United Nations that year. That one thing led to another, and Peace Lights came out in April of 2015. Now, Peace Lights, you saw flowing here. There is no soundtrack. The colors represent the different cultures of the world, and the motion represents how those cultures interact to achieve this good energy and harmony and peace. People used to stop on the streets and just stare at it and comment how it has good energy, and I've seen it scores and dozens of times, where you just put a small little display of Peace Lights in the corner, and that energy kind of seems to get out there. Wherever Peace Lights plays around the world, people are encouraged to project their own intents and beliefs and their desires for peace into the lights, knowing that as it plays everywhere else in the world, there's a collective energy in there of peace and nonviolence that can be accessed as support, as motivation, as inspiration, as needed, and just provide good energy. It's played at the Rock for Human Rights events that went around. It played at a couple of those and really brought an element to there. So this journey of Peace Lights that I've been on for the last couple of years have led me to some interesting doors that have opened in my life, and really has changed the direction of my life. A week ago last Friday, 10 days ago, I announced Project Peace Lights. And Project Peace Lights is an organization that is dedicated to accelerating peace education around the world, initially in the African Union. Peace Lights played at the African Union Day of Celebration a couple times in New York City. And I was also asked to speak at an event that Peace Lights was invited to, honoring Claudette Colvin. Now, many of you, if you don't know Claudette Colvin, she is the first person that got arrested on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, 9 months before Rosa Parks. And it was her lawsuit that went up to the Supreme Court that changed the law. It was her arrest that caused the motion to start happening in Montgomery that led to the timeline that accelerated all the peace education, all the motion in the civil rights movement at that point. She's credited with accelerating the change in the plight of colored people, which means nothing short of that she and her actions on the bus that day, 9 months before Rosa Parks, literally saved lives. Now, I started to ask myself, how did this young 15-year-old do such a thing that ultimately resulted in saving lives? And it was because she was taught by her English teacher, Mrs. Geraldine Nesbitt, about her rights. She was taught about the Constitution, the Magna Carta, the bills, the Articles of Confederation. She was taught about Brown versus Board of Education in '53 that went up to the Supreme Court in '54. So if we say that Claudette Colvin literally saved lives, which she did, then we have to acknowledge that Mrs. Geraldine Nesbitt, her teacher, literally saved lives by empowering her. And it's what she taught the class that literally saved lives. What she taught the class that empowered Claudette Colvin. What she taught the class would fall under the umbrella of, not fully defined, but certainly fall under the umbrella of peace education. Now, through this Peace Lights journey, I got to meet a number of African Union ambassadors. Learned a lot about the African Union. 2.2 billion people, about a third of the world, most conflict-ridden part of the world. Right? There's a beautiful document called Agenda 2063, which is a 50-year plan for the African Union. Kind of taking a page out of the old Chinese 100-year plans that they would manage across dynasties. This 50-year plan has 7 beautiful aspirations, the fourth of which is a peaceful and secure Africa. Under that heading are the words, "A culture of peace and tolerance shall be nurtured in Africa's children and youth through peace education." But I come to learn that as part of that 50-year plan, even though there's a 10-year kind of 11 strategic development goal plan to achieve this 50-year plan, there's nothing that speaks to peace education. and therefore nothing that speaks directly to formalizing and standardizing the teachings of peace education, which include as a foundation human rights. So, Project Peace Lights that was announced 10 days ago was formed specifically to bridge that gap, to fund and finance an independent Pan-African curriculum development working group, of which, by the way, there has been many successful examples of in the past. They've done this in the past. I've hooked up with someone who has chaired one of those groups in the past, one of those working groups in the past. I have financial models. I've adapted them for peace education, and I am now starting to get a large number of endorsers. Queen Mother at the United Nations. I mentioned His Excellency Sadiq Wai is now the ambassador for Sierra Leone. He has been a great source of inspiration and guidance in this process. There's been a number of people. Massimo Perino has been one of the people who has kind of guided me towards this notion of needing to visit every tribe and every country in Africa and kind of financially model that. So the connection with peace education and Project Peace Lights is very solid. It's very logical and it makes sense. I find myself continually inspired by stories around what people do to protect human rights and the commitment that I've seen to the protection and the propagation of education around human rights. And I stand here committed to make that happen. The campaign that we're launching is going to be entitled This Black History Month, Help Make History in the African Union. That GoFundMe page is going to come live in the next couple weeks, and hopefully crescendo to this February, where we're going to be off and running, and no one's going to stop accelerating this timeline and therefore saving lives, as Claudette Colin's story teaches us. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to Teo for his help in carrying around the banner today and helping do everything, and all the people here and Erica in particular. Thank you very much, Erica.